Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Phantom Power Hour. I'm Josh.
And I'm Jeremy.
And if you're new here, welcome.
Welcome.
If you don't know what this is all about,
neither do we.
We don't either, yeah. usually music things of some nature.
A small amount.
A small amount. Sometimes we talk about, all hot topics like AI. And,
talk about Hot Topic.
Hot Topic always deserves being talked about.
You remember the good old days of Hot Topic?
Yeah.
That's where I went to get all my band shirts.
There was Hot Topic, and right across the walkway at the mall was Spencer's.
And then FYE.
And FYE, yeah. Nirvana.
Ooh, the early 2000s were crazy.
It was crazy. Right? Back when going to a mall was fun.
And all of them sold CDs.
Yeah. And DVDs. Yeah.
What is this episode?
Jeremy, just out of the blue, first few things that come to mind. What are like 3 things you're grateful for today?
3 things I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
Grateful for work, fulfilling work that I have fun doing and working with people that I really like to work with, because that can easily be taken for granted.
Definitely.
Family. God, stuff seems to be going smooth and you don't want to like jinx it, but and then, I don't know, you doing this.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It is fun. It's a good time. I think I asked you and I hadn't thought about mine yet.
Ooh, on the spot.
On the spot indeed. But I put you on the spot, so it's only fair. I would say I've got a real awesome like partner back home that fulfills that partner role, which is also easy to take for granted, I think, when, even something as small as starting a pot of rice because I'm running late or something, Also grateful for, I think, just the ability and kind of desire to kind of push creativity or ability to pursue creativity in different ways, which at least personally is really easy to take for granted as well, because it's so easy to get caught in the mindset of feeling down about not feeling like you're capable of either keeping up with like the Instagrammers or, the big artists that you see, but instead trying to realign myself with this idea of, no, I'm like able to even understand how I can try to traverse the creative arenas that I enjoy being a part of, And this last one, maybe we're getting into hippy dippy area, but
let's go.
It boggles my mind, just this whole thing that we get to experience that, we call life. And I think that's crazy. Like, it's so easy to take that for granted, that regardless of what belief structure anybody has or where, people came from, whatever you think it is still mind-boggling that we have this way we can think about things, we can build things, we can form bonds and connections with each other and animals and nature. And so many things had to happen for me to experience not only all of that, but also this day and age that we're a part of, which is also really easy to find yourself on the other side of the fence of, this day and age is terrible. There's so many crazy things going on. I can't stop any of it. I'm just a cog in the wheel, all that kind of stuff. But man, we get to be a part of some wild, wild stuff. Have you heard of the like Reddit rabbit hole of the Kanye AI song?
No.
I don't know if it's a real Kanye song. It seems to be between 2 teams of, it's an AI song that the artist actually kind of recorded the lyrics and then had AI superimpose the Kanye voice. Another camp thinks it's really Kanye, but for some creative Kanye type reason, he doesn't want to come forth and claim it or something. But I bring that up because when you think about that, one of the main arguments against it even being possible that it's an AI generative song is that it happened 4 months ago. And what is wild is it's the only time I can think of in any form of human history where we can collectively agree that, oh, 4 months ago, yeah, probably wasn't possible. That's such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And now you think, but maybe today it probably would happen
I
and
mean, when
sound
you
good.
said that, I didn't even think twice that it could be. That is, yeah, that's
But I
bonkers.
say 4 months ago, and now it's like, oh, yeah, probably not then. It's probably a real person at the very least. So, all
That
of,
is when you take a step back.
yeah.
Somebody was talking about Chat GPT, and they
Hmm.
were like, a year ago, you wouldn't have thought about doing half of this stuff. I was like, oh wow, it's only been out for like really accessible for like a year.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah. And before ChatGPT, the AI imaging, which was
Mm-hmm.
atrocious when it first came out, but still mind blowing.
Now it's wild.
It is insane. It is insane. I'll hop onto the Bing AI every once in a while because it's connected and ran off of ChatGPT 4 and Dolly 3, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I get on there, it's just better. And I don't know. I don't know. It's a wild time that we get to live in, for
Yeah.
better or for worse, we get to experience it. And um, we're one of such a small subset of the probably trillions and trillions of humans that have existed and will exist. We get to do this right now. And we get to see landline telephone turn into flip phone with black and white screens, or really green and black
Yeah.
screens. Yeah.
They were green.
Yeah. And now, fast forward such a short time, and we have a supercomputer in our pocket, or even just on our wrist, that's stronger than anything we could have imagined when we were growing up. So I'm
I
grateful
like
for that.
I like that take because, like you said, it could just as easily be the opposite, where you're like, oh, look at these terrible times we're living in. Like, I feel like it comes from, are you grateful? Do you feel like you deserve what you get in a day, or are you entitled and think you deserve everything?
Yeah.
Because I could see the entitled mindset being, look how crappy everything is all the time. Like,
Yeah.
that's a whole different
Mhm.
tangent, but
I feel like that's an easier mindset to
mhm,
follow, though. For whatever reason, maybe it's human disposition, but it feels easier to be upset about something than to be grateful. Like you watching this, if you haven't, maybe hit pause, think about a few things you're grateful for, especially if you haven't done it in a while, and then think about, why did I have to try so hard to think about those things when you don't have to think about something to complain about at all?
it is an exercise.
Yeah.
Like, it's I've been trying to practice like mindfulness and meditation, like just carving out time for yourself, which sounds weird to even talk about, but as the older you get, like you just fill stuff with busy. Or like,
Hmm.
I have 10 minutes. I'm away from the kids. I should go to the gym. I need to do something productive. I should
Hmm.
clean. I should cook, whatever. But like practicing that just a couple minutes just to recognize like, okay, why are you doing all this stuff?
Yeah.
So
I, for me personally, I have a really hard time being content doing nothing,
yeah.
where I am far from content if I'm in like a doom hole of scrolling or
Mhm.
on shorts or something like that. I can lose half an hour or more doing that. And I don't like it, but I don't feel the same type of maybe uncomfortable energy or nervousness or anxiety or something of just doing nothing.
Mhm.
Whether it's even meditation, I've been off and on doing that for long enough for not, I don't feel that nervous or anxious type of energy when I sit down and do it. I'm not checking the timer, every 10 seconds or something with that anymore. But if I'm not actively trying to do something, I have such a hard time just sitting, you know, which is so strange to me, at least.
Yeah. And I think back to when I was younger and like I was when I wrote my best stuff is when I was like, I'm not gonna worry about time. I'm just gonna sit here and enjoy my instrument, and then songs would just fall out.
Yeah.
And now it's like I think about writing. This is kind of getting off on a tangent from what you said, but like part of giving yourself time and allowing that process to happen instead of just carving out like I need to write song now. Like
Yeah.
I be creative now. Like just allowing stuff like that to happen is interesting.
I feel like it's a universal statement that the best ideas happen when you don't expect them or want them or try to make them happen. You know, they happen in the shower or on the walk or on the drive where your Spotify didn't connect the right way, so you're driving in silence, you know. That's when they happen. They don't happen when you're sitting at the desk pounding cups of coffee trying to meet a deadline.
Speaking of coffee, I'm cutting back my caffeine, so I'm probably sitting here like,
Oh yeah.
But I got my big old water.
There you go. I've been pounding water. The last couple of weeks have been riddled with just congestion. So I stopped by the store this morning and I picked up so much medicine that I haven't tried before. I'm normally a shot of Dayquil in the morning kind of guy, and what happens. But I'm getting so frustrated with just this lingering nose junk. So I got the Flonase, I got the Mucinex. I brought some, what is this? Zicam. I've never used Zicam before, but apparently it works. I don't know.
Let's go.
So far, it doesn't seem to be working. But
Today on Phantom Power Hour, Zicam reviews.
Zicam. Brought to you by Zicam.
No.
Not a sponsor. For real today on Phantom Power Hour, though, Jeremy doesn't know this, but I thought that it might be fun taking a trip down memory lane a little bit and talking about the formation and like steps that were taken from when you decided this was maybe in general something that you wanted to do as a living, and kind of what that process looked like along the way, maybe some memorable milestones.
You mean like the studio and
Studio and engineering, mixing, producing. And I know that there were different courses. I'm familiar with really a lot of what you've done in the past because we've known each other for a long time. But I know that I have a lot of gaps in my knowledge, and I thought that might be fun to talk about today.
Speaking of memory lane and going down, the thing popped up on Time Hop like 8 years ago of the show that was here,
the live
at the
show
studio,
yeah,
with you playing bass with that band.
I saw that, and I remember the setup because the picture was of the setup, right? And there was a picture of I think the guitar player, and that was it. And I, for the life of me, could not remember what the show was.
It was kind of like, because his name was Steven, a cool dude, writes a ton of songs. And I think it was the first time he came to the studio, had finished basically what amounted to an album, although it never got released as an album. But he wanted to throw a party for his friends and have like a live listening event of the whole thing.
It's coming. It's coming back now.
Yeah, that was fun. That was wild. I've never.
Those sessions were fun.
He's a really cool songwriter that allows you to, I have an idea, go for it.
Yeah. I got really spoiled because that was very early in my studio career experience as a session player. And I walked into that and was like, oh, this must be how it always is.
Yeah, no.
It is not.
I would plug the artist, but I don't think you could find it anywhere. So I don't think it's posted anywhere. He's just a chill dude who writes songs. So
we wouldn't have to do this on a recording, but it'd be fun to go back and listen through some of that stuff. Because I promise you, I haven't heard any of it since it was made.
Me too.
Yeah. I
have records that he has done where the music is just incredible, but it just never got finished.
Yeah.
Weird,
but each time a cool learning experience for me.
So what were we going to talk about?
Where did this all start for you, man? What we don't have to go crazy in depth year by year or anything, but what was the first real tug towards music for you?
I was in 5th grade, and I know we're getting hyper specific here. 5th grade, Mr. Sink, terrible teacher.
Mr. Sink, Sink?
Yeah, like
interesting.
Yeah, didn't like him as a teacher. and I really struggled in that class. And part of that Christmas, I think my parents were like, he needs an outlet other than
Mhm.
school, because I was like a stressed out kid,
Mhm.
and I got a guitar. And so I was just poured myself into guitar for a long time, and that eventually led to like going down a whole lot of rabbit holes of like Metallica and new metal and Linkin Park and like
Yeah.
learning so many things that were like popular back then. And
The
then
cool guitar stuff of the time.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, like some cringe stuff if you look back at it now. Um, but that led to playing in any band I could. Like
Mhm.
as soon as people figure out you play guitar, like you get asked to be in a lot of bands, especially at that age.
Mhm.
And that led to eventually playing with people who were much older than me, who were much busier than me, who were playing in a whole lot of different places. So I got to like experience road life pretty early. Like not to a massive extent like tour bus stuff, but like we had vans. We
Mhm.
had the broken down like 15 passenger vans with a trailer. Lived that life for a long time in high school, which was bonkers when I think about that.
Yeah, that's a pretty unique experience, I think, even today.
Yeah. Like the leash that my parents gave me, now that I look back on it, I'm like, I would never let my kids do that.
Mhm.
Like, so that was pretty cool. But continue that through college, and it was like we actually went to the same school.
Mhm. Which is why
And
I think there are a lot of the milestones that I'm familiar with, but
yeah. And there it was more music focused, not so much like production focused,
Mhm.
but um did work in a few studios around there. The one at our college, the one that was adjacent to our college, which a massive studio, Gaither Studios,
Mhm.
incredible space to like cut your teeth in. Holy cow. And going on to grad school for business, actually wanted to pursue that. And it was the times 2009, there was no job to be had.
Yeah.
But I had all this recording gear and I had this music background. So I started recording our friends basically from the school we went to
Mhm.
for fun and like to pay the bills and pay rent, put food on the table while I was looking for jobs.
What was that first setup like? Was that, just an at-home,
It
in a
was,
room
oh yeah,
kinda
it was
setup?
in a basement.
Mhm.
Actually, in the house that we rented, I put up a wall that split basically. Our house was 2-story, where you lived on the second floor. The first floor was a garage, and it was like basement garage. Um, Cinder block cement floor. It was a mess. And I set up down there, built a wall, basically built a space that I could work with the little gear that I had. And that was just what I did for a few years while I was looking for a job, and that never came
Mhm.
until my dad basically he was like, "This is kind of working. So like just do this." And I was like, "Do you think that's viable?" Like I didn't believe in it at all. And
Interesting.
I'm kind of looking back. I've talked to my wife about this, like looking back at the whole thing. I was like, I was probably the person that believed in it the least, but I had so much support from everybody else, like my parents, my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. And he said during this same conversation of, this is working. Why don't you just get off the pot?
Mhm.
And I was like, well, okay, let's go. So that was one of the most real conversations that my dad ever had with me up to that point. And then from there, it just kicked into high gear. And then after that, having the support of like all these people behind you, like, well, crap, now I can't let them down.
Yeah.
Like they believed in me to this point. So,
Was there also an aspect of you finally made that internal decision of, "This is what I'm going to do,"
oh,
so
yeah.
then all the gears started turning on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, tons of mistakes. And I mean, you remember back in those days, I was not very good. You know,
No one would be,
I mean,
you
well,
know?
looking back to see who would be opening like a commercial space like this, I was not prepared,
Mhm.
but probably one of the best decisions that we could have ever made. And having my dad helped me a lot in the construction and like helping me with some of the initial investment to do everything, bought a lot of the gear, and a lot of work in buying like broken gear and fixing it. Like it was a lot of bootstrapping to get the space like functioning, and it didn't look like this from day one.
No. Lots of evolutions of the space.
Yeah. And I build a new desk about every 2 years or so. So we'll see. It's about that time to build another one.
It really is, actually.
I like this one though.
I like it too. I like it too. But you don't have enough room for the TCL like 105-inch TV.
No. I need to downsize that. I'm gonna go back to a dual monitor setup. But it was a lot of weird turns to get to where I am. And it's one of those things to not sound. It's hard not to sound jaded when you talk about it. Because I've told the story on a couple podcasts before, and people are like, "Well, it sounds like he's not very grateful to be doing what he's doing." I'm super grateful to be doing this. It just wasn't the initial vision. So I'm kind of a product of what happened in the environment around me. Happened to have some of these skills that sucked when I started, but I was able to make it work.
Well, I feel like, going back to what I was saying earlier in a very general sense of so many different things had to happen for us to experience this current like reality that we get a chance to experience. I feel like at a like microcosm type of level, you starting out in a cinder block style basement, having to put up a wall to try to get the area to work better for what you were doing, recording your friends' bands and your own band and things of that nature. Like all of those experiences only forced you to work through tougher problems and find solutions for. And even if looking back compared to the skills now, of course, you're going to be way better now at all of that stuff. But I feel like it's just one of those situations of having to hop over a bunch of hurdles that you weren't ready for just gave you like a double experience rate in comparison to if this space is exactly how it is now, and then you come in and you start working from ground zero with all of this already, I think you could still get to the point where you're at now, but I really think it might have taken a lot longer.
I think you're right. There's a certain thing with like limitation and trying to accomplish things that are way beyond your capabilities that force you to either or get off the pot. Like, I had a mentor. I won't call him out. Killer mixer, Billboard Top 100 stuff. And one of the things he told me, he's like, "Look, I'm not condoning lying, but if somebody comes to you and asks if you can do something, you say yes."
Yep.
And he's like, "You figure it out." It's like, worst case, if it doesn't work out, give them their money back. Don't take it till it's done, whatever you want to do, but like force yourself to go beyond your means. And once I got more comfortable with that, it's like once you start flexing that muscle of like taking big risks with projects, and obviously you need to know when you're not right for the project. Like there's a line there, but
like if somebody came in and tried to say, "Hey, can you build me a house?"
I mean, I could probably do that.
Oh, that's probably a poor example.
We built our house.
Can you rebuild?
But I know what you're saying.
Can you rebuild my engine from like
Couldn't do that.
1972 Ford?
I would destroy it. But he taking those chances and being willing to take the projects that you're not comfortable taking, you realize how fast you can learn something.
Yeah.
And you realize how many other things apply in different areas. Like when he said that, he very much like is famous for one genre of music, but he works in tons of genres. The mentor that I'm talking about, he works in all different kinds of genres. I had it in my head that I wanted to work in this one particular genre. And once I got that out of my head, I was like, I'm going to expand my horizons and I'll take on this other thing. You realize how many of these things work together.
Right.
And the knowledge that you have over here works over here. It just worked.
Yeah.
It made a lot of sense, and it keeps you from being bored too.
We were talking about this when we were doing the studio kind of tour video a few episodes ago. But we were talking about a lot of the hardware that you have. And I made the comparison to finding your voice as a musician is very similar, in my opinion, to finding your voice as somebody that mixes or produces. And I feel like forcing yourself to take on those jobs that you don't feel like you're ready for, but then you gain this experience in a whole other realm that you normally wouldn't tackle. You're going to be pulling bits and pieces of that, whether it's, oh, I got this type of snare sound for this genre that is supposed to happen here, but I really liked it. And maybe I can incorporate it in this way with what I'm doing. All of that, in my opinion, is, that's you exploring what your own voice is. The same way, I don't listen to country music, but I can't tell you how many country gigs I've done. And there's some cool stuff that I've picked up from doing that, whether it's tonal or bass line specific or anything in between, you know?
Yeah, and snare drums and country music. The one genre I wanted to work in was metal. You know how many country records have metal snare drums, like metal genre-esque snare? Like it's the genres blend like crazy.
Yeah.
And knowing all the tools helps you make what's right for that artist. Because even if an artist is like within this genre of country, there's a lot of other aspects that go into that whole thing. It's
And I wanted to go back real quick to, you were talking about, well, really, we were both talking about forcing yourself to work in these conditions, or not forcing yourself to, but allowing yourself to work in conditions that aren't pristine enough yet. We were talking about kind of the basement, right? And how that allowed you to gain more experience because you had to work through different problems and understand how to use the gear in different ways that you had. I think that, especially with some of the stuff that we've talked about, we always bring up gear as a tool. You don't have to have specific pieces of gear, but I think it's really worth noting and thinking about how you have the option to still be grateful for the crappy mic that you do have, and then work with it, problem solve with it. And I say the same thing to students who have beginner level guitars or basses. Maybe your frets aren't in the right spot, so your intonation will never be right. Okay, your ear's going to get better then. If you're especially if you are working to the point of letting your ear guide you and your fingers kind of do little tiny micro bends to get everything to sound good. There are pros and cons, of course, of falling into bad habits maybe, but if you can get a bass that has terrible action, pickups that are less than desirable, all the bad stuff, and you can still get a killer tone, and you can still increase your capability of, doing finger gymnastics across the fretboard, that's Goku training with weights.
Yeah.
Yep.
Turn gravity up to 4 times, and what was he doing? 400? I don't know.
Man, I just restarted Dragon Ball Super over the weekend. Anyway.
But going to talk about gear, like I do a lot of gear reviews on the channel, and one of the comments you just said made me think, like, being grateful for the gear you have. That is absolutely true. And the video I just did, some of the comments got me like, well, this is interesting. Seeing the dichotomy of arguments of individuals posting this. When I'm looking at this stuff, I'm trying to present them like tools. So I had the Neve Newton, the channel strip, and I was looking at what that had to offer versus my Neves, and I'm thinking about getting rid of the vintage 1073s that I have for a whole host of reasons. And it's not that the Neve is better or worse. The Newton is not better or worse than the 1073s or vice versa, but does it make sense to hold on to these things
for your specific use case and experience that you have?
And some of the arguments on that video were like, well, of course, get rid of the old stuff. Modern stuff is always better. And right next to that, I screenshotted it. Right next to that was, Jeremy, nothing will ever sound like vintage 1073. So I'm like, I just presented it to you. You couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah.
What does it matter?
Yeah.
So it's like so much of this, and like, I'm stoked to have the microphones and the gear and the converters that I have. They are not necessary. They are tools. And then in a building like this, like I'm not like I'm not a musician making music for myself most of the time. I'm making it for other people who are paying to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times paying a whole lot of people in the room at the same time, like you and other studio players who there's a lot of money happening in the room. So that means I have to be fast. I have to have the right tools at the right time. And it's more about speed and getting the sound right in there. Not that you can't take a $99 microphone and do the exact same thing. It would take you a whole lot longer.
Yeah.
It would take a whole lot more work, but you could do it.
Mm-hmm.
There may be some certain things that you couldn't replicate exactly, but it's just that. It's like, what hammer do you want?
Yeah.
Like at the end of it, you spend more on a hammer, maybe your wrist isn't going to hurt so much.
Yeah.
But you still built the house.
You can use the Phillips screwdriver that came with your TV.
Yeah.
Or you can use an LTT screwdriver.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Your grip might hurt a little more with one of them, but they're still tools and they're going to get the job done. That's the whole thing with gear. And like gear acquisition syndrome is totally a real thing. And I fell into that when I started, like in the basement in the cinder block building.
Mm-hmm.
I was more worried about getting those 2 Vintech 573s than anything. I thought they would make me a better engineer. They did not. They didn't. They sounded good. I couldn't put my finger on what that sounded like back then. And only until your ear develops and you get your monitoring right. I should have done that first. But so many things can get in the way of it. But I get it. Like you don't know what you don't know when you start.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part. You need to get in there and you need to screw it up.
Yeah.
Basically.
And that is true across the board. The biggest lessons you learn are from all the times that you mess up.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be playing on stage. That could be getting a terrible sound when you're trying to mix, anything in between. Speaking of getting the sound right, I'm going to let you break the news whenever it's ready, but you got some things getting the sound right in the control room right now.
So I've been using Dutch and Dutch monitors for a long time. Before that, I was using Focals twins, the Twin 6BEs. Well, I'd been back and forth to Sweetwater a few times, going between like the PMC room and the Focal room and the PMC room and the Focal room. And I just got some Focal Trio 6 ST6s, the new tweeter designs. I was kind of unsure what they were going to sound like against the Dutch and Dutch just because I'd never heard like transients that fast. I found some of the software things with the Dutch and Dutch, unfortunately, just didn't jive with my workflow. Bummer. But when I got the Focals in there, they burned in for about 40 hours. And that was a whole process because you try not to judge a monitor when you first hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got it up. I did not like the sound.
Just drastically different from...
Very different.
Yeah.
But you got to burn them in for 40 hours. So I locked them in an ISO booth and just blasted music for 5 days, basically.
Do you know what the technical... is it to get the like flex in the cones or something?
I think it's to, like just to loosen up the fibers in the cones, loosen up the glue. I don't really know.
Yeah. And those are fiber wound cones. And
those are beryllium.
Right? Okay, they're beryllium.
I don't know. I'm not a very technical person. They told me to burn it in for 40 hours.
Gotcha.
So I did.
Follow the manual. RTFM.
And so once I got the burn-in finished, I came in and just listened to a bunch of music that I know really well. And I was floored. Like, Dutch and Dutch are fantastic, but the low end was incredible on these things. And that could just be my room,
mm-hmm.
right? It could just be like, I moved them around a little bit. You got to get the placement right on those. Like an inch makes a difference with those bad boys. Thankfully, once I got it. And it felt like there's a lot of impact there. I don't think the transient is as fast as the Dutch and Dutch, but you heard the mix because when you came in, I was like, I showed you a mix that I had done before and after,
mm-hmm.
On the Dutch and Dutch, on the Focals, and I feel like I was able to get the soundstage so much easier with the Focals, and I don't really know why. I can't tell you why. And you noticed it too.
I noticed it right away.
Yeah.
And it's the first mix sounded really good. And that's what I had been used to hearing as well. Well, sort of. But then you switched over to the new one, and every layer was audible in a much more pristine way.
I can't put my finger on what that is, but it was so much easier to hear like the 500 to 700 range, like in a very honest way. And then I think on paper the Trio 6s go down to like 38 hertz. I could be wrong. I don't remember, but it goes way down.
Yeah.
I know the Dutch and Duchess had a lot of true bass. What just happened to the table? Oh, I see. The low end on those were great, and they go pretty low. But I felt like I still needed my sub, because I have the sub from when I was using my twins, and those need a sub. They had no low end that was worth anything from a reference standpoint. They're fun to listen to, but they're not very honest. The Dutch and Dutch were great with that low end, but having these in here now, like I can turn my sub off. Like I turned my sub down a lot when I was doing the initial measurements and stuff. I have the volume turned so far down on my sub because the mains can handle it. And honestly, I could mix without it.
Yeah.
It is crazy. That three-way design works. Why'd I hold up 4? The three-way design works really well.
Pick number 2, my lord. However that Shrek quote goes.
And the tweeter design, I don't know. It feels completely different than the twins that I had before. Like there's a comfort thing with Focal because I used them for so long, and there's like a Focal sound for sure. And that is here in the Trios, but instead of being like fun to listen to, which that's important for some people, especially if you're creating and you're not doing a whole lot of like mixing, mastering, like you maybe want a monitor that's more fun to listen to rather than like hyper honest. I need the honest part for what I do. And coming from the twins and then the Dutch and Duchess and back to the Trios, it's like I have the perfect balance of both of those worlds. And I still have a lot more mixes to run on there, but my initial things I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah. And as a point of clarification, if it wasn't already clear, when we were talking about the comparison of the two mixes, it wasn't taking a song and listening to it through the Focals and then listening through it to the Dutch and Dutch and deciding what he liked the sound more of. It was he mixed the same session on the Dutch and Dutch and then remixed it on the Focals.
Yeah. And there were about 2 months in between mixing that song. And at that point I'd had the Dutch and Dutch for a long, long time. I was very familiar with them. Still, I was stoked on that mix. Still a good mix. But when I got the Focals, I just wanted to dive into something that I knew really well. And that was kind of the last session that I knew I could play with. Without going, because we had an improved mix. So I could go back and kind of play with it. And I heard so many things just like, oh, I wish I could do this different. I wish I could do this different, but not on a level of like going back to an old mix where you're never happy and it's never really done. It was like, I can hear this now. I hear this and I hear this and I hear this. Again, Dutch and Dutch are fantastic. I'm not dumping.
Yeah, this is not indicative of one being better than the other.
Not at all. But I think for me in my room,
how your ears work. We talked about this before, how sounds bounce around in your skull.
Exactly. And I used Focals in the past. So that sound is very familiar.
And that's a large bulk of your growth with your ear. So
they were the first nice speakers I ever got. So I'm sure that's a huge part of it for me. But yeah, I'm excited at this point because they feel really good.
Yeah.
They feel really good.
It's not released yet, but one of those examples that you showed me earlier, maybe I can put a couple side-by-side comparisons.
there's a part where he's playing the hi-hat on the drums where he goes back. I can't remember exactly what it is, but he's like, and then back to a groove. That's a part where I was like, okay,
Yeah,
I can hear. It'd be interesting to see, like, is there even a difference over YouTube?
that's yeah. I would also. This is so much work, and in your position, not worth doing at all. But it'll be really interesting to hear the new remix through the Dutch and Dutch,
Yeah.
and to see what kind of audible difference there is through those monitors. Because I'm sure there will be an audible difference, but how will it feel as drastic as the difference that we heard through the folk house? You know?
We could try that when this is done.
Okay.
We could set them up. Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. We'll let you know.
Let you know, indeed. So hopping way back, that was a fun tangent. I'm glad we got into that.
A fungent.
A fungent. Ooh, that almost sounds like fun guy. Where's some fun guys? I know you're not gonna call out your mentor that you cross paths with and helped you out, but how did that happen?
I just emailed him.
Really? You just cold call?
Yep.
Like just reached out?
Yep. Just emailed him. I found his studio page, and I mean, so many engineers are more than happy to share what they know. You can't bug them for too long, but I just had a list of questions, told him what my concerns were, told him what I was working on, and basically he coached me through a mix. I learned a ton that way.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of became somebody I could bounce stuff off of.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, really cool. And so many of those dudes are super gracious. And you'll find, like, if you email some of your favorite mixers, they're going to talk to you probably. I was shocked at the amount of people. There's people who emailed me back and I had conversations with that I wouldn't call mentors, but like I've had conversations with some of my favorite mixers out there.
That's awesome. That's they're
like, cool dudes.
That's genuinely heartwarming.
I mean, if you talk to somebody and you're like, man, that record you did sounded incredible. How in the world did you do that? Because, and then if you like show, well, I noticed this and I noticed this and I noticed this, they're probably going to be stoked to talk about it because who reaches out to a mix engineer?
Almost no one.
Almost no one.
The real deal unsung heroes of the music world. Like there's a few really prominent folks that, people at least know their names. Mm-hmm. They might not know why they know their name, for example, but
yeah. Like CLA. Everybody knows who CLA is.
Yeah, yeah. He's the guy with the cool plugins, right?
Yeah. The speakers.
Yeah. Man, that's so cool. That's one of those gaps that I wasn't really familiar with. Because I know who you're talking about. We've talked about this in the past, but I never knew the full story.
Yeah. The other one, you can cut this out. Well, the first one's
on the educational side of learning all about this. Of course, you had tons of hands-on experience and like you've already said multiple times, like lots of mess ups that taught you, how to avoid that. But you also did a lot of educational work in college for this kind of stuff.
Not really. Not as much as you think.
Yeah.
I took recording tech.
Well, yeah.
But that was like as advanced as this is an XLR cable. Mm-hmm. Here's a stereo pair. Like that's as far as that went.
Yeah. So did you do any internship stuff at the studio by campus though?
Never had an internship. No.
No.
I just you
just had some sessions
there. Had my own clients that I took over there.
Yeah.
And I had my band recorded there. Mm-hmm. So I kind of got the lay of the land that way. Had clients that I took over there. And that was big too, because even taking my clients there as like a producer, I didn't know what I was doing, but hiring those engineers to work at those sessions.
That is a pretty cool aspect.
Yeah. I mean, that was OP for sure. Like,
and then the client walks in, they see all the Grammys on the wall and all the awards. Well,
not just like for me, it was like, that's the fastest way to learn. Because here's an artist I'm bringing in, and this is what this place is built for, right? Mm-hmm. Producers bring in, artists and those engineers come to work because they know the building, they know the gear. And in a space like this, we're talking tens of thousands of square feet facility, multiple studios,
Huge.
like massive multi-million-dollar space. And it was awesome. But hiring those engineers to work those sessions took all the money I had, and I made nothing on those gigs. But I learned so much so fast just watching them.
And that's where you learn about like all the API sounds and stuff, right?
Yeah, that's when I fell in love with that console and quickly figure out what you like and what you don't like, because I had every microphone to play with.
Yeah.
There. Well, I didn't, but I could tell them put this mic up, and you could hear it on different sources. And some of the ideas were stupid, and you figure out quick. Being able to try out that many things in a controlled environment where you're not going to screw it up because this guy is paid to be here to make sure you don't. Like, such a good way to learn.
Yeah. And they have all the experience on all the mics and all the different bands that have come in. So now you get to kinesthetically, visually, and with your ears learn about the placement and the different sounds, not only that the mics have, but why are you using this type of mic, the style mic, at this angle, at this distance?
Yeah, into this compressor, into this EQ, or the cool thing was like seeing things I didn't even ask for. Like us on drums was the huge thing. Like you can record just about anything else anywhere else. Drums are where you go to a certain place. And I learned so much about how to get a cool room sound, even that I still employ here in my space. And my space is nowhere that size. But I learned I don't like a room that big. Because we ended up not using the room mics in that space. And I've heard that from multiple people who have worked in that space. Like that room is almost too big, or it gets too bombastic. And so taking that information and developing space here helped me immensely. And that was just from hiring an engineer like years ago. So stuff like that is not as, I don't know why it's not forefront of advice that you hear from people. Go hire somebody who already knows what they're doing. That's the quickest way to learn something.
It's a good point. I've never heard that from like an engineer or producer or mixing perspective.
I mean, when I want to learn about mastering, I hire my favorite mastering engineers.
That's such a good idea.
And I talk to them about what they do. Because a good mastering engineer is going to talk you through your mix, right? I mean, mainly what you're paying for is that last step of quality control on any given mix. When people hire me to do masters, I'm doing the exact same thing. But when I feel like I want to learn something or I hear a master, I hire those people to do my own mixes. And the notes that I get back are like, this is worth way more than what I paid you. Like,
wow. That's just the biggest nugget of gold, I think.
Oh yeah. Stuff that seems crazy obvious, right? I don't know. That seems super obvious to me. If I like a certain producer, I'm going to hire that producer and learn like, why are you so good?
Yeah. Man, never thought about it that way.
Obviously there's money involved, but
and
if you're to this point of talking about stuff like this, like chances are it's cheaper than you probably think. Like hiring those engineers to work those sessions was a couple $100 for the day. Hiring the mastering engineer was only $75, but I learned so much. Yeah. Very little investment for like or you could go take a course, or you could go to school.
Or you could do it all. Or you could explore all the different facets of learning and see what works best for you.
That's a whole different conversation, but I'm definitely not one to promote like going to school for this.
Yeah. And I'm in that. I have one foot in that boat and one foot out. I didn't go down that track, so I can't fully speak on the studio side of schooling. I like to hope that there are some places that do it in a really, really good way. But for so many things in music, I think experience is going to be the best educator for a lot of it. other than the technical theoretical understanding of, if you want to understand the math behind why phases work and a bunch of other things like that, then maybe pick up a book about it.
If you want to be an acoustical engineer, that's an entirely different story.
Yeah.
But if you want to make records, I mean, there's some classes you can take, but there is no reason that if that's your main goal, that you should be going to a $20, $30, $40, $50,000 school a year.
One huge caveat I would say, though, is the school isn't always about the education.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's all sorts of networking and experiences that are birthed from that environment of like-minded individuals pursuing the same thing. But that's why I say I'm 1 foot in that boat and 1 foot out, because you could also cultivate that yourself way sooner as well.
I'm definitely an advocate for getting an education. Like, I went on to get my master's degree. I'm all for education. I'm saying specifically to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, to just go for like record production. I don't know. Maybe there's some good stories out there, but the ones that I've run into, the interns that I've had, they have terrible stories about it. They have crippling debt from it. And they, at least the ones I've come into contact with, they know so little that I'm like, if you had just spent the same amount of time scouring YouTube, even going through the bad videos to find the good videos, like you would have the same, if not better, knowledge than you currently do. And you could have paid for YouTube Premium like 1,000 times.
Well, Jeremy, they say that those who don't do teach.
I don't know. I teach.
Which is why I try to teach music.
But you do.
Oh, dang it. It doesn't work.
That's always an interesting thing. And that's a comment that pops up on every YouTube video. It's like, well, you're just doing this because you can't do it. Like, okay.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
If you have that kind of jaded sense from everybody who's giving you little nuggets of advice, then that's sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somewhat, I mean, maybe it's true in some cases, but that's, you got to have a filter to know, like, is this person viable? Are they doing things in the industry? Are they actually working?
Yeah. And what within you as an individual resonates from what they're saying. Like, I tell my students all the time, I'm going to explain, if we have the time, I want to explain every ounce of what I currently know and understand. And I'm hoping that I'm throwing all the noodles at the fridge and we're hoping that they all stick. But there are so many different ways to understand what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is not gospel or ultimate truth. Like, we can work together for however many years. I still want you to be looking up YouTube videos. Maybe go get other lessons on the same instrument or other instrument. Do all this other work, because my goal is not to create little mini-me's, It's to help somebody else, either get to the desire to keep growing and learning, or to just be able to collect all the information that they can. And people learn things differently. But all that to say, if you're in school for this and you like it and it's good, awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's sure. Good stuff. If you never went to school for this and you feel like you missed out, that's not necessarily true. And the sheer fact that you're on YouTube watching a music podcast goes to show that you have enough interest and desire to try to fill that brain with some good stuff.
And so much of this job, YouTube aside, is education. It's when you have an artist comes in, there is so much teaching that you're doing to that individual.
Yep.
Because you have more knowledge about the industry or distribution or capture or production or arrangement, whatever that is. They're coming to you because you have this access to knowledge. So
yeah,
it's the whole thing is education.
It really
all
is.
The time.
It really is. And when you educate, the more you teach, the deeper you understand your own craft. So it's mutually beneficial in that way.
For sure.
So if you know some stuff and you're not teaching people about it and you're trying to keep it all to yourself,
Screw you.
You're only hurting yourself. That's all you're doing.
Yeah, his was better.
Also, screw you, I guess, with the LT2 screwdriver now available at lttstore.com. Not a sponsor.
Is LTT sponsoring the show?
Dude, I wish.
Hey, Linus.
You want to do some recs and wrap it? And got any more about your story that you want to dip into?
I don't think so. I think we got it all.
I think so.
Record Rex.
Rawr.
Rawr. Where's my playlist?
If you were a dinosaur, what dinosaur would you be?
Diplodocus.
Can I get an explanation of a Diplodocus?
I think I just made it up.
Man, it sounds real. What would it be? Describe it now. Now you have to paint a picture in my mind of what a Diplodocus
I hate Triceratops, man. They got a swagger.
Triceratops does have swagger.
Yeah.
They're very cool. They're just like...
They're like the Snoop Dogg of dinosaurs. And this is definitely not because...
I don't follow that logic at all, but I agree.
My kids are into storybots. And they did a dinosaur episode, and Triceratops sounds like Snoop Dogg.
Yes.
So it's therefore the coolest.
Now I follow the logic.
And raptors are the Beastie Boys.
Raptors are terrifying, dude.
Well, luckily they don't exist anymore.
That's what they want you to think, Jeremy. They want you to think that dinosaurs went extinct.
All right. This one vibes. This is a whole rec. Can I do like a full...
Please do.
We do full records. No,
Yeah.
What am I thinking here?
Well, we sometimes do songs.
Minus the Bear. What is this? Let me figure out the name of this record for sure.
You got a lot of bands that don't like to put the name of themselves or their album on the cover art. It's nothing I've ever thought about before, but it seems to be
It is true.
a habitual thing here.
Wait. Oh no, there it is. It's Highly Refined Pirates.
That's a cool name. Oh, it is on there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is a record that's like no skips. It's a masterpiece. It's so good. And I don't know if Minus the Bear is still playing. I think they just did a farewell show a couple years ago, but I've seen them a handful of times, and it's one of the greatest live shows. But yeah, Minus the Bear, Highly Refined Pirates. Listen to the whole darn thing.
Just track one through the end.
Oh man, I think my last one was L1011.
Yeah, which was also another full album.
Did you listen to it?
I haven't listened through all the way through. I haven't had a chance to do top to bottom uninterrupted.
All right, this is also a good one.
Yeah,
I didn't listen to your rec either.
that's okay. That's all right. I'm not going to hold it against you. I'll learn to think about forgiving you. You said that Minus the Bear, one of the greatest live shows. Have I talked about Theo Katzman as a record rec before?
I don't remember.
Me neither. If I have, I'm sorry, but
Gets wrecked
at
twice?
the end of the day, he's good enough to be wrecked twice. So my rec is Theo Katzman. To bounce off of Jeremy saying Minus the Bear was one of the greatest live shows, Theo Katzman, for me, to this day, has been the best live performance I've ever witnessed.
Yes, you have wrecked this before.
Have I? Okay. Well, I have a plan B, so we'll go to that. Let me tell the story once more, though, in case people haven't heard.
Go for it.
It was just the perfect environment of, we're at the Hi-Fi, which is my favorite Indianapolis venue for multiple reasons, but sold out show. Theo Katzman, if you don't know, is one of the vocalists that you hear on Wolfpack all the time. And he had Joe Dart playing bass with him on this tour. I always forget his name, but the keys player from Dawes was with him as well. Just killer lineup. And I walk in and I see some of the musicians that I respect the most around the city, just packed in this venue that's limited seating, sold out. And that's like the number one sign that this is going to be a good show. You got all the musicians that I think the most of, and they're all crowded in this room. So it was one of those experiences that, I don't know, just you reach a state of bliss, and now it's only a memory.
All right, now what's your real rec?
Oh yeah, my real rec. I took a screenshot so I wouldn't forget. This is one that I came across this morning, actually. It popped up on a recommended It's called Mini Mansions. It's a group I had never heard of before.
I had not heard of this either.
The album is Guy Walks Into a Bar. To be honest, I haven't listened through the whole album yet, but the song Don't Even Know You has been, I listened through it just a couple times, but I was really enjoying it. Yeah.
Ooh.
So it's like almost Modest Mouse type of vibes. But this is what made me think of Theo Katzman. There are some Theo Katzman-esque vocal styles in here.
Okay. I was like, this is why I love YouTube music, because you can go to the comments.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of YouTube music as opposed to Spotify.
I've been using it a lot more lately.
And it sounds better.
It does.
There's no reason Spotify should not be streaming high res.
Yeah.
And not paying artists more. Listen to YouTube music or anything that's not Spotify, please.
Yeah.
So let's not go off on a rant, though.
No.
Oh, that could be our emoji, though, if you made it to the end.
Which emoji?
Toss up a middle finger to Spotify. Is that even an emoji?
It is on the phone. I don't know if it's supported in YouTube. Probably.
Out of context, everybody's going to think they're giving us the middle finger.
This is true.
Are.
Maybe they are. You might be.
They're like, no, Spotify's awesome.
I think we don't have to go down it. Conceptually, Spotify sounds amazing, but I think they could be doing better. I'll leave it at that.
There definitely is a middle finger.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You know, if you feel so led,
if the spirit has led you to the middle finger,
I don't know. What looks good to you? Dinosaurs.
We gotta do that.
Triceratops. No. But there's a T-Rex.
There's a T-Rex.
Drop a T-Rex in the comments.
If you made it this far, drop a T-Rex in the comments. And if you haven't already, think of 3 things that you're grateful for today. It's good for you, I promise. You'll like it. You're going to love the way you look. I guarantee it. Until next time, goodbye. We faded out yet?